part 3 of the nitric oxide series. There might be more videos, but I'm hoping to stop here. So this part is about what to do to increase the chances of your body producing adequate nitric oxide. So the first thing I've already spoken about it earlier. You have to stop using broad spectrum antibiotics for long duration and use it only for good reasons. Stop using mouthwash because the nitric oxide production is majorly from the nitric oxide cycle in the human body is mainly from the oral microbiome, and if you decimate it, it's not going to be able to help you make enough nitric oxide. You need to chew your food properly. So the longer you chew, the more you can break down the cellular structure of the plants, and more you can release the precursors that can then be converted into nitrites and nitric oxide. So you need to chew your food properly. Lots of green leafy vegetables, because most of the nitrates and nitrites in your diet will come from green leafy vegetables. With regards to non-vegetarian food, you should be having a high protein diet, because arginine and citrulline are the main amino acids that are then converted into nitric oxide. So I don't want you to have arginine rich foods. I just want you to have protein rich foods, because you're going to get arginine and citrulline from these foods anyways. You need to stay away from proton pump inhibitors. So basically omeprazole, pantoprazole, rabiprazole, all of those drugs, because if you don't produce enough stomach acid, the second step of the nitric oxide cycle, where the bacteria send the nitrates into your stomach and then get converted into nitrites, that doesn't happen because you don't have enough stomach acid to help break it down further and turn it and move it along the nitric oxide cycle. So stay away from these proton pump inhibitors. If you need to use proton pump inhibitors on a regular basis, there's something wrong with your diet, there's something wrong with your lifestyle. You need to correct those things first instead of using the tablets all the time. The more stressed you are, the more nitric oxide gets consumed. So try and avoid chronic stress. Stress is a part of daily life, and you need to go into stress and come out of stress as quickly as possible. You shouldn't be staying in a stressful situation. Fermented vegetables are a good source of good microbes and nitrates. So making your own fermented vegetables at home is a good idea. And the best example of these fermented vegetables is what is called beetroot kvass. So basically it's beetroot chopped into small pieces. You add salt to it and you add all the sweet spices to it. So cloves, ginger, cardamom, star anise, all of those spices are used to add some flavor to it, and you ferment it for 2 days. You drain out the kvass, the liquid, and then you leave it in the fridge and you drink a little bit of it every day. So that is one way to get a good source of nitrates in your diet and a good source of bacteria. Now, nasal breathing. So when you're exercising, make sure you're breathing through your nose. When you're breathing for any reason, try and breathe through your nose. If you hum songs or if you sing songs and you breathe through your nose, you get an additional small boost of nitric oxide. It's good for you. It's relaxing too. The final and the most important way to improve your nitric oxide production is to exercise, because most of the nitric oxide that goes to the end organs, to the tissues, is produced within the blood vessels to those tissues. So if you increase the blood flow in a particular area, that itself then signals the endothelium, the inside of the vessel walls, to start producing nitric oxide. So exercise is a good way to improve nitric oxide production. So every time the vessel wall gets stretched, it'll release nitric oxide. Now, if you over exercise, if you exercise too intensely for too long, you overcome the ability of the blood vessels to continue producing the nitric oxide. You produce a lot of mechanical damage to the inside of the vessel walls. So that's when a little exercise is good, or moderate amounts of exercise is good. Excessive exercise starts to damage the endothelium, and that can cause problems. So if you're exercising, you need to be exercising in a manner that raises your heart rate for an hour or less. And if you're healthy, you can go longer. If you're unhealthy, you should be exercising less intensely for shorter duration. So the normal thinking about exercise is, if you're unhealthy, you need to exercise more. uh, on the surface of it, it does make sense, but for somebody who's unhealthy, you're already in a hole, you're already not doing too great, and you're adding a stressor like exercise on top of it. If you add too much of that stressor, you're going to do more damage than good. So keep your exercise at a moderate intensity, and make sure that the duration is not excessive. So usually 40 minutes to 1 hour per day is more than enough. If you're having to exercise for longer than that, if you think that's a good thing, and if you do it daily, you're going to end up in trouble. So once in a while, going long duration exercise is fine. Doing 2 or 3 hours of running or walking or cycling once in a while is fine. But if you're doing it daily, if you are spending 2 or 3 hours in the gym daily, and you're leaving your heart rate high for hours together with exercise, you think you're doing a good thing, but it's not. So you need to moderate the amount of exercise that you're doing. And the healthier you are, the more you can put your body through. And the sicker you are, or the more unfit you are, the more careful you need to be about exercise. You can't overdo it. So that the shear stress, so shear stress is not SHEER, it's SHEAR. The shear stress that exercise produces on the vessel walls is useful to produce nitric oxide, but too much of it on its own will cause mechanical damage to the vessel wall, and that will lead to a drop in nitric oxide production. So I'm saying this again and again because even though I like exercising, I make sure that I don't do too much of it. Most of the time I have to hold myself back. So that was it. That was about how to increase your nitric oxide production. If you got questions, please add them in the comments, and then we'll probably have a follow-up video. So that's nice. And have a look at the old videos also, the part 1 and part 2. I'll put the links in the comments. Thank you.